You've probably driven past abandoned car washes many times in your day-to-day life and wondered, why is it just sitting there? Why is it abandoned, and why is nobody doing anything with it? Well, the beauty about these abandoned car washes is that you can convert them into pretty much anything. And that's exactly what Chris Thorndike did with this old abandoned car wash that he converted into micro retail suites.
My name is Chris Thorndike, and I'm from Gainesville, Florida. I am a private investor in commercial real estate, primarily focused on my long-term retirement. What you guys are seeing essentially was once a window manufacturing company. They had storage in here. This was the shop for windows, and they ran the office out of here.
Was it actively listed for sale? How did you find the owner?
It was actually on a walk with my daughter, and I see the owner getting out of his work truck. We got to chatting, and I saw the opportunity. I was like, so, this building, would you ever consider selling it? He pauses for a moment. He's like, yeah. He just kind of sighed, and I'm like, I knew there was an opportunity there. We talked rate, and that was on a Friday, and I came back on Monday with a contract. What you see today is about 1.5 years of redevelopment. What we saw was the vision to say, hey, this is really underutilized space. Could we get more tenants? When we said, okay, what's behind all the walls? There was a base kind of naturally created with concrete walls 60, 70 years ago, car wash.
Yeah.
People would come through this driveway, they would pull into what's now, the suites, and then actually go through the building and come around here. It was redeveloped several times, but the bones revealed, hey, this could, make really great suites for small business. Originally thought I could just flip it, clean it up, paint it, and then find a new tenant that essentially needed a similar space. And when I started running the numbers, it wasn't really exciting me. I was kind of off of my goal, cash flow wise. I started looking for other ways to bring in more rental income. And that's where the idea said, hey, I've got something unique here, but it's not in the format that can really make that type of rental income. I'm gonna need more tenants. So redesigning it was a whole new concept, and honestly, that's where I found you and your content and the wash as a great role model property. This was the storage area. It was really run down. We applied, some paint, gave it a sleek look. It had a lot of potential because it was, roadside. The challenge with this was there was no plumbing. So that was one of the first things we had to do was contact the city. We had to put a new drain in. We had to connect to the city. So that was an ordeal. The whole road had to be dug up because there was not a connection in. We completely underestimated how much that would cost. Putting in a drain in the city was like 6, 7 grand. And I didn't initially budget that because I assumed there would be a tie-in to the city drain. It didn't exist. It just speaks to having a really good relationship with the city and trying to tie everybody together. But in hindsight, that will go on the checklist of to-dos, but that was a big lesson learned too. We had found a tenant early on. They were looking to create a dance studio. I had no idea what pole dancing was. It is a fitness routine, and this was the perfect opportunity for her to get her start.
Okay, so walk us through this space, because from the outside, it looks like you've got 3 garage doors.
Yeah, we do. And originally I was trying to think about how do I create a space that was easy to rent. I was a little nervous at the time to do, so much customization to remove the doors. So we came up with a compromise and said, hey, why don't we build a false wall? So there's a false wall here that looks inside finished, and then on the outside, if we ever need to do reconvert, we could just take the wall down.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way of doing it because it's very easy to cut into a wood-framed drywall wall, as opposed to a block wall, which is typically how people fill in those garage doors.
That actually would have been pretty costly too, to fill in 3 concrete block, re-wall it up, labor. So it actually was a better decision to go this route.
Have actual operating expenses like your maintenance, property taxes, building insurance, does that all come in on target with your projections, or has that been any different?
So we decided to do a gross modified leases. It includes taxes, insurance, property maintenance around there, internet. By going gross modified for tight-knit kind of strip mall tenants, we can work together to create better spaces more affordably and bring in some really great features for them that they don't have to incur the cost. It's a really affordable rate for them, and it's turnkey.
So this is one of the typical spaces. I mean, this used to be a car wash bay.
Yeah, cars would drive in through the front, head out the back. Each of these have 2 bays, and in the center was like the service area where they'd have the equipment or the machinery for the
All
actual
the soaps
jets.
So
this is 400 square feet, what you're in. We could have gone block, but we updated to drywall. We updated to have drop-down ceiling. We updated to have central air. And then the last thing we did was we put additional positions of drainage. So in each of these walls, there's 2 separate areas that we could tie into on the drainage side and water. So it gave us a little bit of room to kind of make the space modular. And then you can see here the way the vents are, we could put a wall up and subdivide it into 2 separate spaces, but still have access to air.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's the future of construction, right? Is making sure that you're putting the little things in the walls that, it's gonna cost you a little bit on the front end, but in the long run, not having to tear out all of this concrete and redo everything all over again, it's gonna save you a lot of money, gives you the flexibility for any kind of tenant you want. All right, let's go check out this other suite.
Let's do it.
So if we're looking at the building, you've basically got an A unit and a B unit, right? Because I'm assuming you alternated the bathrooms, the plumbing, all that kind of stuff to kind of stack everything.
Mirror image to stack.
Okay, so this one actually is built out a little bit more.
Yeah, so, this actually made me really happy to have a space that we could test the modular layout. So you can see here the walls up on the inside of these 2 vents. This happens to be, a waxing salon, so they needed a personalized space. And then it allowed us to tap into those rough ends that I was talking about, water drain in there. Because typically too, the way that job works, they need heat and then they also need a sink. So those are all readily available for her.
All right, so this end cap unit is a little bit bigger and different than the other ones, so let's check this one out too. All right, so tell us about this spot, because this is significantly bigger.
Yeah, this is 150 square feet bigger than the other ones. It's a total of 550 square feet. This is what I'd say is the prime suite. So we have 2 access points or windows. It's on a corner of what I'd say more trafficked area and a lot of visibility in. But you can see here, wide open space, similar concept. ADA bathroom, so everything they could need to have a shop, retail space. This gets a lot of exposure in terms of just visibility on the road. This is the perfect place for a shop, something unique and special and not so franchised.
The tenant earlier was mentioning that she scanned a QR code and got a hold of you, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so as the development happened, you can see we're on corner spot, which gave us traffic via bikes, cars, walkers in the neighborhood. And we're like, hey, let's promote the building while it's being developed and see what leads we can get to, just do walkthroughs, or at the time it was really just future versions of what we thought it would look like. The signage was QR code that went to a form that they could apply, and I had questions on there for like, how long you've been in business, how many people do you plan on having in site, just getting a feel for would this actually link up before we went down the path of meeting and walking through. Before we even opened the door, there was probably close to 60 people that had filled out that form and opted in.
60 people.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Did you get that party? Said I was brilliant. The website at first only had a contact form, couple questions about their business, and then soon as we got more interest, I started running ads through some of the free sites like Craigslist, just trying to get a feel for who's shopping right now for spaces. And then that allowed me to get more confident about what the outcome was going to be for the space, and also get an idea what people are paying or leaving in terms of space. The property was 50% filled before we finished, and then it took us about 3 months post occupancy to get the remaining spaces.
You said when we were first talking that you wanted to do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
To get this property up and running. What was your initial budget and timeline?
So we purchased the property for $400, and originally I was like, okay, can we, put $100 into it? And this is, just after the pandemic, and I also didn't realize, that money didn't stretch as far as it used to. It turned out that we had to nearly triple that budget. But in doing so, it would also take a net operating income and multiply that by an additional $50,000 a year. But that was a lesson learned as I look back. Know your numbers and then add 10 to 20%. And I would say do the same thing for timeline. Have an estimated finish timeline and then add more time to that, and I think create a bigger safety net. Now, financing, I was in a position where I could self-finance. So I actually took a loan from my LLC. So we have debt, but I got to pay myself back. That allowed me to purchase cash and make some moves fast. I think the thing there was creating reasonable financing that mimicked what I could find out in the marketplace.
Did construction timelines and budgets go as planned? If not, what changed?
The budget changed because I started adjusting to kind of retrofit the space to be what I'd call like modular. And I didn't have that idea at first of like where we could put in walls in the future or put in drains. So that came later, so that increased the budget. The overall timeline I got 6 months behind. It's no one particular area, it's the combination of all those things, and then before you know it, I think that's where I saw the overall construction build out get off track.
What's the current valuation of the property, and what kind of returns on investment metrics are you measuring for it right now?
Original purchase, 400. Total investment, I think came out to 350, so we're 750 in. We got 250 in equity within just under 2 years to get to that point. And then return on investment, cash on cash investment, 25%. I was ecstatic about that. Mentally staying in it, it's like a marathon. If you haven't run a marathon at mile 20, your legs start burning and it feels like, someone's stabbing you in the legs. I feel like that's how some of this happened for me because I was so fresh to development. Sure, I had help and your advice and my contractors, but being in it and being responsible for the whole financial piece. When I put myself in that position, coming out the other side, I'm like thankful I went through it, but it's a marathon. I don't know if a year and a half or a year is quick or not, but it felt like eternity at the time.
What advice would you have for other new commercial real estate investors that are where you were 2 years ago?
Having a buy box really is the first step of knowing what you want, what's gonna make you happy. Because of that marathon feel, you have to be really connected to the project to see it through. Focus on what you can control. I think about the nights I was stressed, I think about distractions that came up. You can only control what you can control. So having a really great contractor is like having a really great best friend during this journey. So go with someone that you trust, go with someone that you like personality-wise, and someone that's a really great communicator. If they don't have that, I would pay a premium for that. I think from an investment standpoint, I hit my goal. It brings in just under, I think, 38,000. Here I am saying, did I hit the mark? I think it exceeded it because of your help and also making those little bit of changes along the way. Yes, it costs more up front, but we got a much better net operating income and cash flow down the road. Just before my deal, I was looking for guidance. I was looking for help to navigate what steps were gonna happen. It's almost like I looked at who's ahead of me, who's a really good guide that is gonna answer questions I had, but also prevent a massive mistake that might completely destroy my retirement. So you were it. At the end of the day, no one was doing insider information to help someone get ahead. But then I started realizing you were offering more than just videos. After purchase, you can schedule a time to talk with you. That was my first investment with you, saying, how do I talk to this guy so I have very specific questions? I don't know which way to go, but I spent 30 minutes with you, and I swear that this is the reason why we have $1 million property and $50,000 more in net operating income. And it took 30 minutes for me to reshift my thinking, redo the design to make it a really strong investment, not just an okay one.
So if you want to come join me and Chris and hang out with a bunch of really cool people, check out the link in the description below on this CRE Accelerator Mastermind. If you want to learn more about the car wash that I converted into micro restaurants and a bar, check out that video right there.